All right, I'll be back.
Okay. Thanks, CJ. All right, the Halliwell Multi-Generational Building Committee meeting is called to order at 7 o'clock. First on the agenda is roll call. Mrs. Tebow?
Here.
Mrs. Paulus?
Here.
Mr. Pendergast?
Here.
Mr. Punchak?
Here.
Mrs. Adjournment?
Here.
And the co-chair is here. We also have in attendance Town Administrator Gibbs and Town Council President Alice. We also have Joel and Jeremy from BH+A. Second item on the agenda is public comment. Any comment from the attending public? Hearing none, we'll move on. For discussion, consideration, and action, we have the meeting minutes from February 27th and the meeting minutes from March 6th. Give everybody a moment to look those over. If everyone's okay with them, we'll look for a motion to approve. Don't know if that's
I don't have any comments on the minutes. I just comment on the minutes. Kim, this HMBC resolution modification, how do we go about getting that taken care of at the town council?
I'm gonna have to probably give it to David to revise.
Is that something that you do, or should I take care of that?
You can bring it up at the next meeting.
Hearing no amendments, make a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second, all in favor? All right, next on the agenda for discussion, consideration, and action. Awarded grants and proposed grants. This is going to be a little bit of a presentation from Mr. Gibbs. Linda and I had talked about this, figuring that it would be good just to catch everybody up. I know there's been a lot of discussions of what's been awarded, what we're looking to go after, and we just want to get everybody on the same page so there's no, when we're going through this process, leaving no stone unturned, that we're all kind of working together in a unified effort. So, Mr. Gibbs, if you would take a moment just to kind of run us through where we are, what we have, and
won't take long.
Perfect.
We had 2 grants that were previously awarded. One in the amount of $4 million, and the other one in the amount of $1 million. The $4 million is specifically related to the construction of the multi-generational facility. The other $1 million is effectively related to site kinds of issues, so open space, passive, active recreation. That extra $1 million, I would say most of that's not going to be directly connected to your budget. Some of it could be, but not in total. Where we are in those grants, they have been awarded. Both are with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We still have to go through a documentation process on those. I spoke to a grant writer who we retain on a short period to deal with these. She's been very busy as it relates to new congressional appropriations, which are due tomorrow, but she's going to immediately get on the documentation on Monday for the other, the 2 grants that have already been awarded. We filed a new congressional appropriation request to Senator Reid on Tuesday, and that was in the amount of $1.5 million. We submitted a second one to Congressman Amo, but that was for Scottus Hall, so it doesn't really relate to this. We have G&G Consulting right now, who is preparing 2 grant requests to the state of Rhode Island under the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is through the Division of Housing and Community Development. North Smithfield does not qualify as an entitlement community, therefore we have to apply to the state and federal CDBG money on a competitive basis. That application the deadline for that application is, I believe, May 5th. We're going to have a public hearing on that. Bobby in planning is starting to orchestrate that. So we need a public meeting with the planning board to confirm that the project complies with the town's comp plan, and then we'll probably try to squeeze in a public meeting for the council for the same. That grant request for the multi-generational facility, CDBG, is in the amount of $750,000. We'll see what happens. Obviously, right now, nobody knows what's happening in Washington. I still think the dust will settle. Things will become a lot clearer soon. But those are so effectively we have $2.25 million of grant requests outstanding for the multi-generational facility. The only other caveat, not caveat, but thing I want to highlight is the town council's approval of engaging architects for this project was conditioned upon fees to be paid for out of the federal grant. We don't have access to federal grant right now. That's a little bit of a problem. Spoken to the finance director, and we probably can handle this through under general government. We have a bond receipts in total for everything, and we could probably pull out of there on the short-term basis. I just want to feel super comfortable that we're all set. But those have been appropriated monies, and they are not subject to the recent action by Congress, which basically blanked out any community grants. This was before that, so we're fine.
Great, thank you for that.
Well, of course, we'll continue to keep our eyes open for additional money. If we were so lucky to get awarded at the amount that we requested for the 2 grants, then the budget hole's gone. The project's funded. I don't expect to get 100% of that money. If I had to guess, I would say that if we got the congressional appropriation, it would probably be to the amount of $1 million, not $1.5 million. And if we got the CDBG money, it would probably be $500,000, not the $750,000. So that would bring us in at about $1.5 million, which would leave us around $600,000, $700,000 short at this stage.
Do we need the grants that have already been issued as far as like what can be done with the $1 million? Does this committee have that so that, maybe we can?
Well, we don't have a formal grant agreement. We do have the award. The award is for capital costs, including soft costs. So we can pay for architectural fees, engineering fees, and construction.
And then what about the $1 million?
The $1 million would be the same. I fully expect that would be through HUD as well. It will be probably the same conditions. When we asked for the money, we did not specify per se, other than the fact it's being used as part of the total project cost. But we did kind of highlight in that grant request things such as energy efficient electrical lighting systems, plumbing fixtures, stuff like that. Theoretically, they can come back and say that that's what it's going to be used for. I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to create some differentiation between the original grant request that's already been awarded and this one. We're going to the pool a lot. I hope people don't talk too much up there, but we're going through. I mean, the $4 million was through Cicilline, and this is through Reed.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Gibbs? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated. I suspect we'll be having more discussions as we continue onwards, as we turn over these rocks that we're.
We'll definitely keep the committee informed throughout.
Mhm.
Anything that we hear, we'll let the co-chairs know. Anything that you hear that you think may be a potential. There are some non-governmental grant sources, foundations that we have not tapped. And we can probably start tapping those now, especially since we've already gotten some money in the pot, if you will.
Mhm.
So we'll start exploring that as well.
Great.
Okay?
All right. There's no-
One thing, Jeff,
Yep.
Linda, does this project include a backup generator?
We did have that in our original estimate.
Okay.
We did have a backup generator, so yes.
Yeah.
Because if it is in the estimate,
Mm.
then we could start looking for REMA funds
Okay.
for that.
Yep.
Is that the shelter funds?
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
These are good for that, if it has a kitchen that you need to have.
Exactly.
All we'd have to do is add a shower.
Yep. And there's a lot, that's one of the things out of the new administration is prioritizing things like infrastructure and emergency management issues.
Okay.
So I think we're going to probably see some more money coming out in that area.
Great.
All right?
All right. Thank you very much.
Can I go home?
You can go home.
Can I go home, Rick?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda, for discussion, consideration, and action, we have updates from BH+A. I'll turn that over to Mr. Tozer.
Yes.
So we have two parts of this. One is to look at the site, and one is to look at the building. So I'm going to start with the site, and then Jeremy will do the building. On the building side, what we did was we looked at putting some options up for some of the questions that came up in number of bathrooms, and can we efficiently take off parts of the building so we have alternates when we go to bid, so if we need to make it smaller, we can, or if there's an opportunity to make it bigger, you can do that in the bid. So Jeremy will show you that. And we went back to our, having gotten introduced at the last meeting as to where we were going, we went back to Parr, who's our civil engineer. We got together and put together some site plan diagrams that the first page in your handout, all he's saying is that what we're going to show you tonight are site plans that are relatively easily permittable with Rhode Island DEM, because they're either improving the wetland considerably or they're not adding anything to the wetland. So we're not showing you any plans that they don't think could be permitted. They do think that there are some schemes that may not even have to go to DEM. And then if we did have to, the timeline is probably 90 to 120 days. So it's not as onerous as was discussed last week. And 90 to 120 days is pretty typical for those projects. So I don't think it really holds up the schedule, especially because Parr would be able to go and get a preliminary reading from DEM on what these options are. So this is just a picture of what's there today. So the dashed things are where the buildings were, and the paths are still there, and the circle, the basketball court area, and the access road, that's all there. So one thing when you hear the site improvements, if we wanted to keep the basketball courts and improve them, that would seem to be out of site improvement construction. The blue line here, from here over this dark area is the wetland area, and it comes up, and I suspect when they built Halliwell School, they disconnected that and put the road in. But at the moment, today, the existing condition, there's no wetland there. You are in the buffer zone. The buffer zone is a 25-foot, and 100-foot and a 200-foot area. So you want to stay out of the blue zone, and in the blue to brown zone, you have to get some permission. Within this area, it's all as of right. So from this line over on this side of the site where the parking lot is, that's all area that you can build in without having to deal with any wetland permitting. So we're just going to go through a series of options. One was to try to keep the existing paving. So what you would do there is you would scarify that, you know, like when they redo the highways, they grind off the top inch or inch and a half. And then you can stabilize the base and repave just that existing footprint, and then we can get 3 pickleball courts and 1 basketball court on the area that has the double basketball court today. Again, this is existing. You can get about 50 spaces parked in there. You could have the traffic circle is wide enough for school buses to queue up, so you could have additional parking on the traffic circle. We put the building here for, you'll see why, and then it suggested maybe the community garden would go here. There's a few parking spaces at the end of the traffic circle that are there that would be really convenient for folks going in the community garden. And the only issue is that with the building design that we had, it was designed to expand horizontally. We'd have to sort of change the expansion, but if you put the building here, it's all within the as of right area, and the extension for any future addition would come out the back, and you could grow in this direction again without needing any permits. The one thing about the garden too that's nice is we talked about making a connection in to the restrooms and that, which happen to be in this corner, so it's a nice little adjacency. The one thing that is a little tough here is that on senior-centric programming, we like to have the parking within 125 feet of the door. We can get a handicap space there, we can get a couple handicap spaces around here, but those folks, from there to there, that's about a 220, 230 foot walk. So it's a little bit further than you might want. Maybe the parking some more could go on this side and the road could come in like that. Well, I think the downside is the proximity of the parking to the building. But while you're still in the wetland, you're only repaving area that's already disturbed. So that's a relatively low lift threshold. Use that one to repave within the wetland buffer zone, which is this area, that would have to be gotten a permit for.
Where is the entrance to the building? Is it right near the
Right
circle?
there, yeah.
Okay.
So Joel, if we were to reconfigure some parking and maybe not utilize the existing paving, have parking closer to the building, pull it out of the wetlands, kind of between the courts and the building, would that be would we need further permitting with DEM, because it looks like that little chunk where you have 3 spaces falls within the buffer, but then the rest of the spaces, is that a relatively easy lift, so then that way we're providing a little bit more parking closer to the building?
Well, we have an option that does that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And the only caveat I have on that, Mr. Seaver, who is a wetland biologist for the project, didn't really focus on it, but we are on, if we scarify and repave the road, which is the plan, you are still doing some work within that buffer zone. You're not doing it on area that's undisturbed, and I can't believe, and there's no chance that wouldn't be allowed, but that would still, I think, you'd have to at least get a recognition with them whether you need the permit for that or not.
So I mean, regardless, we're still improving any of the conditions that would be falling within that.
Well, this would, because the other thing is, you know, when you redo that, you would put some drainage in, and right now there's no drainage there.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
We usually have a dump truck come in once a year to deliver manure, so I'm not sure how that would get to the garden.
There is that little curb cut, and then you can see the vehicles have come up this way,
Right.
existing, so we could clean that up. I mean, you could keep the garden where it is too. I mean, just the thought was to try to,
No, actually, I've been told we have to move it because it's in the buffer zone. So,
So I have a question. This is all fine and good permitting wise, but if a fire marshal wants a road through the back, we are going through wetlands, and that is not going to be a 90 to 120 day process.
well, I mean, if he does, you could get to the wetland.
Yeah, you got to start shop there.
So you can get to the back. The problem is that you don't have a way to get out of
Yeah,
it.
I thought we had access to land on the west
There's no
side.
egress
Oh,
there.
no.
No, there's no egress.
Yeah,
So I mean,
Come down and go back.
I think we have to go back to the fire marshal because most sites don't have two means of egress, and
But there
you
should
can't
be.
really do it, and you haven't had it for 50 years when it was a school, and I think that this is a much less intense activity than it was when it was a school.
So it appears that this is the least impactful as far as additional site work of the three options.
Yeah.
It's-
This is the least site work.
Yeah.
It may not be the easiest to permit. What's nice is that all you're doing is
It's
repaving
scarification.
and putting the,
But
so you're right. This one says, okay, I'm really not, I'm only repaving within this existing area. So my road is extending